people, how are you doing? I hope you're having a damn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about Ralph Hasenhüttl's Wolfsburg team and the set of tactics that I do think that he will be looking to try and implement throughout the course of his tenure at the likes of Wolfsburg. Of course, there has only been one game played, but they did play a 4-4-2 system or a 4-2-2 system, depending on how you see it. I kind of saw it as a 4-4-2, but you guys can let me know down below. And so far, I've made and created the tactics very much similar to what Southampton did with his time there. And I do think that he will look to try and follow that trend and that style of football as well. So if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, subscribing if you are new, leaving a comment, that would be fantastic. Rating the system out of 10, that would be even better. And yes, let's hop on straight into the goddamn video. So, moving on to the formation, I have selected a 4-4-2 holding. That means that there will be two DMs in play, and that does help with the build-up play and how this team is looking to set out under their new manager. Other than that, I've made no structural changes to the lineup, so therefore it would be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two DMs, two wider midfielders, and then of course, two strikers. Moving on to the tactics now. For the tactical vision, I've selected gegenpressing. At Southampton, we saw a very aggressive, very proactive Southampton side press the daylights out of virtually every single opponent. Very often, they would, win the ball nice and high up the field, look to transition it into attacking play. And I think more so with this Wolfsburg side, they are more or less set out to do very similar things. And even in the game the other day, they were also very good at pressing and winning the ball in these very good opportune areas in the field, and of course more centrally as well. Often the minute the ball is passed into the more central areas, the midfield as well as the strikers and even the wider players would all hone in on that player on the ball and look to try and win it back very aggressively. So I do think that under Hasenhüttl they will have this very aggressive pressing style, counter pressing style of football that he will look to definitely install in the side. As for the defense and the defensive style, it goes hand in hand with the tactical vision, but it is set to pressing after possession loss. Like I said, when they turn the ball over, they're going to look to try and win it back as high up the field and as quickly as possible, looking to try and restore balance to the force, you could say. Obviously looking to win the ball back and maintain possession. As for the team width, it is set to 25. Now, this does help hone in quite a lot in the more central areas, allowing for the players to have that nice compact nature, kind of flooding and forcing the opposition into those wider areas, making sure it's very hard to play in the more central areas, and often teams try and, get the ball, work the ball into the midfield. And if you can try and stop that and prevent those, actions from happening, it often breaks up the flow of the opposition, for a lack of a better word, but it breaks up the flow of what they're trying to create in their build-up play from back to front. For the depth, it is set to 80. Now, on the weekend, they didn't obviously play the highest of lines. It was, slightly more reserved, but I do think that with a bit more time, with a bit more confidence, whilst the players, learn the system, learn their roles, they will obviously look to try and press nice and high up the field. And of course, when you are playing a very aggressive pressing brand of football, you do need to have a high line that goes with it, and that does help with the pressing nature of the side. So I've set it to 80. If I remember correctly, I also watched a few older Southampton games when they had the likes of Danny Ings and so on in the side, and that one season when they did very, very well. They did have a moderately high line in the Premier League. So I think it will be slightly more aggressive in the Bundesliga because more naturally, traditionally as well, the Bundesliga teams tend to press nice and high up the field regardless. So I do think that a high line set to 80 would reflect a very accurate Wolfsburg, defensive line. Onto the offense, the build-up play is set to fast build-up as well as the chance creation is set to direct passing. Now this does again go hand in hand with the gegenpressing style of football, but more so Ralph Hasenhüttl, he's all about possession. So you need to also keep that in mind, maintaining the ball, trying to, work those angles, work those opportunities, get the players into the space. They are quite happy to pump those long balls in behind into those wider channels if required, if the players have made those runs further forward. But at the same time, they're also quite happy to draw the opposition onto them, quite often forming a back three type system, rotating the ball between the goalkeeper and those three defenders, and inviting the pressure. And obviously, when the opposition try and press you, that opens up quite a bit of space in the midfield, as well as, it invites the opposition's backline to press further up the field. So it's a bit of a catch-22. You could be caught out, or you could catch the opposition out at the same time. So, be a bit mindful about that. But when they do have the opportunities to get forward, they move the ball very, very quickly through the midfield. So again, I'm relating this back to the Southampton team, but more so I do think that because we have seen the 4-4-2 set out for that first game, there will be very similar key elements to the way that Wolfsburg will set out under their new manager. So again, keep all this in mind at the same time. I'm quite happy to do another video, maybe, you know, a few months down the line, if he has changed his team and the way that they play. Obviously, if they play a 4-3-3 consecutively, consistently, I'll obviously have to relook at the situation and reassess and maybe even recreate another tactics video. But for the time being, I do think that the 4-4-2 with these particular tactics and instructions, that is more or less how they are going to possibly set out for, you know, the next few games, or maybe even throughout the course of this season. Anyways, enough waffle. Progressing on to the width, it is set to 30 now. What this does is, because you are playing with wider midfielders, Hasenhüttl kind of adapted the Leipzig style of play, the 4-2-2 system, and even at Southampton, he still wanted them to kind of play in that same manner. And what this does is, with the team width being set to 30, it kind of brings it narrows the attack. So it will bring the left and the right midfielder slightly closer. It allows them to interchange more effectively, more efficiently with the two DMs as well as the two strikers. And it also allows those wider passages on the pitch to be, you know, exploited by your bombing on fullbacks, or maybe one of your fullbacks, depending on how they set up. Because whilst doing the research for the Southampton tactics as well as, you know, the Wolfsburg tactics, quite often the team would set out with their 4-4-2, and then one of the fullbacks would either stay back and it would form that back three system, or if needed, if required, both fullbacks would bomb further on forward down the lines, and one of the midfielders, it could have been Romeo at the time, or even a James Ward-Prowse, depending on who was in the side, they would also look to slot into that back three. So it was very key that a back three was very much in play for the boulder play going forward, which is exactly what the instructions will do for your side. Anyways, again, enough waffle. A nice compact central attacking unit. That's what 30 does for your side. Onto the players in the box. Now, quite often you want to try and commit quite a few players into that attacking area, so the cutback or the cross can be latched onto by either you know, your two strikers, or one of your attacking wider players, or maybe even one of the fullbacks as well. Sometimes as well, one of the midfielders, but I've set it to 8. It allows you to have 3 to 4 players in the box at all times. Obviously, onto the corners and the free kicks, as for always, it is set to 4. So, taking a look at the instructions, starting off at the back with the likes of Castells, the goalkeeper. For his instructions, I've set him to a balanced approach for saving on crosses, and in terms of saving outside of the box, I've set him to being a sweeper keeper. Obviously, with the high line, you would require your goalkeeper to try and cover as much space between the goal as well as the defense, and more so you would necessarily want him running off of his line, collecting the ball, circulating it back into play, also being able to play under pressure and, you know, through a potential press that the opposition might throw at you. As for your two defenders, your two centre backs, I should say, Bonneau as well as Lacroix, both are set to their base set of instructions, no major changes or requirements for either or. As for your right and your left back, now they have slightly differing roles. We saw this in their last game, of course. Wolfsburg again set out with that back three system, and that more or less allowed the right back to kind of play as a right wing back. And I think you pronounce his name Mailer. God knows, the right back. It was this man right here. It's a Danish name. That's all I know. Anyway, so he was able to flood forward, combine nicely with another more natural right back in Baku, and yeah, you would see him bombing on down the right flank quite a lot. So in order to replicate that role, join the attack, overlap, and of course, stick to position. As for the left back, filling in as that, you know, third centre back, often, you know, coming a bit more central. So here's set to stay back while attacking and invert. And of course, stick to position. You want it when in, you know, the builder play and in the offense and in possession of the ball, you want to try and have him, you know, quite reserved, slotting in next to the likes of Lacroix, and making sure that that left-hand side is very much locked down, which is exactly what these instructions tend to do. Now, moving on into your midfield, of course, you've got Gerhardt as well as Arnold. Now, both of them have the same set of instructions apart from one. So we'll start off with the likes of Arnold. He is set to tight mark, of course, often trying to pick up the runners on the edge of your box, making sure that, you know, there's no free shots popped off, or there's not time and space on the ball to try and create, or, you know, potentially create a goal-scoring opportunity as well. Stay back while attacking. You don't want them flooding forward unless you are trying to chase the game and you need that extra man in and around the box. So I've set it to stay back while attacking. It often allows for, when the fullbacks do bomb on, it allows for that extra bit of protection in the more central areas of the field. The interceptions is set to normal, and then of course Arnold is set to being the deep lying playmaker, often dropping into the little half spaces with the goalkeeper restarts, allowing him to kind of slot into that back three system / back two system with in between the two centre backs, and it allows him to get on the ball a bit more and maybe even dictate the pace of play when building out from back to front. Of course, for the defensive positioning, it is set to cover the centre, not looking to drift too far wide into those wider channels, more so in front of that back two / back four at times, and making sure that nothing is getting past them in the more central areas of the field. As you'll see here for the likes of Gerhardt, same role and instructions apart from the positioning freedom. Now, both can definitely drop into the little half spaces, yes, but you don't always want that. And I think with Gerhardt, it's more of a thing of maintain your shape and your structure, and when in possession of the ball, just try and support the likes of Arnold in the more central areas, which is exactly what stick to position tends to do. As you'll see here for your left and your right midfielders, both will also have the same instructions. Both will be told to more naturally drift inside, and this allows them to kind of create that 4-2-2 system that we have seen in the past with the Southampton teams, the Leipzig teams, and so on. But both will also be told to come back on defense, often looking to try and support the wider defenders, of course your fullbacks, trying to pick up the runners and maybe even breaking up play as much as possible. The chance creation is set to cut inside and come short. Like I say, you want them to kind of narrow their attacking mindset and come a bit shorter, combine with the midfield as well as the attack, and just be a nuisance and try and create overloads in the more central areas of the pitch. As you'll also see here, the interceptions is set to aggressive, and this helps with the counter press that you are looking to try and implement, as well as the support on crosses is set to balance. Now, because we have set players in the box to 8, and that's more or less 4 players in and around the box, more naturally you will see your wider midfielders make that extensive run into the attacking third. But if there is an overload and maybe one of your fullbacks has also gone into the attacking area, they will look to try and stay further back and try and facilitate and create. As you'll see here for the likes of Baku, same role and instructions as well. No major changes, and of course I do know that he is a right back, but I think the likes of Ralph Hasenhüttl likes him as a bit more of an attacking, pacey player down that right-hand side. Also very good at naturally whipping in crosses from the right, so maybe that could be an element that we do see a massive change in. And he also brought on, was it Maya? I think that's how you pronounce his name, but he also brought him on in the latter stages of the game. And he also was very instrumental in the builder play in the more central areas as well. So taking a look at your two strikers, both will have the same set of instructions as well. Both Wind and Nemecha are very capable in playing in a successful Hasenhüttl side. Both will be set to a balance width as well as a mixed attack, allowing them to use their pace in behind, and quite often with the side, if they do choose to go long, they need, those willing runners. And Nemecha and Wind, as well as Behrens, who also played on the weekend, they are all quite happy and capable of, making those extensive runs in behind, trying to exploit and penetrate the opposition's backline. But at the same time, with the attack or the attacking runs being set to mixed, they can also be a target man, or maybe even drop off and be a bit of a false nine if the game requires that. If you might need that extra man in the midfield, either or can do that job very, very well. And of course, for the support runs being set to a balanced width, it allows them to drift in and out of the more central areas if required, or maybe even run the wider channels. As for the interceptions, it will be set to aggressive, again going hand in hand with the aggressive gegenpressing system that Hasenhüttl wants from his sides, as well as the defensive support is set to come back on defense. Now, we discussed this in yesterday's Throwback Thursday video where, Julian Nagelsmann, in certain moments he wanted his two strikers to drop a bit deeper and almost drop into the midfield and help prevent those passes into the more central areas, which is exactly what this will help your side do when it comes to the counter press that you are looking to try and implement as well. At the same time, with your your strikers being set to come back on defense, they'll often drop onto the opposition player that's on the ball in the midfield. And this also prevents them from making back passes to their defenders as well. So it's quite an effective, useful counter-pressing measure to try and use in FC24. So guys, if you do rotate the side and a player like Rogério does come in, this will obviously not really play into the hands of having that back three system with your left back slotting in as that third centre back. So for his role as a more natural bombing on fullback, you would want him to kind of mirror the right back. So he'll be set to join the attack and overlap. But what this essentially does is it kind of breaks the style of play of how the likes of Hasenhüttl would want. And I did mention earlier that if the fullbacks did bomb on down the left or the right flank together, obviously, operating in the more attacking side of things, one of the midfielders in the double pivot would drop into the back line. Now, I've selected Arnold to do this. I think he is the most capable of doing so. And basically, all you'll really change is the defensive behavior is set to balance. Now, this will allow him to maintain a more central role. And because he is also set to being the deep lying playmaker, he will naturally try and slot into that central area in the back line, allowing the team to kind of form that back three system that we have spoken about quite a bit. So yes, those are the only real changes that you can make to the side in order to make it very fluid in a way. If you do want the more bombing on, more attacking style of fullback, and then of course you can have one of your midfielders dropping into the space between the defenders. So yes, and there you have it, people. That is how I would replicate a Ralph Hasenhüttl 4-4-2 system in FC24 with his new club in Wolfsburg. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. As always, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, hit that like button down below, show some support for the channel, please. Subscribe as well if you are new, and all that good stuff. Out of 10, I would give the system a very high rated 9. I absolutely love it. It works so well. The fluidity in the front line, the ability for the defenders, or sorry, not the defenders, the wingers to, come a bit more central, interchange with those more central players as well, is fantastic. It often pulls the opposition players out of their positions, opening up quite a bit of space for your team to flourish and function in. So I hope you guys, can see that with these tactics as well. You guys can let me know down below what you would rank the system out of 10. And of course, until the next time, I hope you have a damn great day. By the way, something very special is coming out later, so stay tuned for that as well. Anyways, I'm out.